Hey everybody, and welcome back to Cityscape Brewing. It's no secret that I love beer. But if you've been watching my channel, you know that I especially love a good Hazy IPA. Oh, hey babe. Happy Valentine's Day. Well, you're looking great. All bubbly, beautiful. I've been thinking about you all day. You know, it's Valentine's Day, and I just really couldn't wait to get home and put my lips all over you.
What are you doing?
Oh, nothing? What are you doing? So just in time for Valentine's Day, why not make your secret Krush beer? Made with all Krush hops. So this is gonna be a traditional grain to glass, showing you every step of the way, from start to finish, everything from the recipe down to tasting this beer. And we're gonna go through all of that after you guys hit that like and subscribe button, grab yourself a beer, and we're gonna get after it. And also, if you want to be super awesome, hit that join button and become a member today. Members enjoy exclusive recipes for members only, access to brew day sheets, and they get to watch my videos early as they drop before everybody else. So hit that join button and become awesome. What are Krush hops? Well, it's a relatively new style, newly named hop that used to be called HBC 586 pellet hops. But they recently named it Krush, which they described is perfectly suited for fruit-forward IPAs and plays well with other citrusy type hops. But for this one, because I love hazy IPAs, we're gonna make this with only Krush hops. The website, Yakima Valley Hops, where I got these, describes them as layers of ripe tropical fruits like mango and guava, as well as rich stone fruits like peach, and has aromas of fresh sliced navel oranges and mixed berries. So I don't know about you, but when I heard that, I think all hazy IPA. I'm also gonna mix this up with a yeast that I've never used. Omega's Tropical IPA, which is OYL 200. This yeast is gonna bring those delicate, tart, tropical mango and pineapple fruit characteristics to this beer that will pair nicely with those Krush hops. So it's like getting a fruit basket for Valentine's Day. All right, so let's go through this recipe a little bit. We're gonna be building a 6.9% ABV. See what I did there? This is gonna be a 5.5 gallon batch, and all of the ingredients and directions will be in the video description as normal. So you don't need to write everything down. We'll have it all listed for you in the video description below. To get to that 6.9% ABV, we're gonna need 8.5 pounds of two-row, 2 pounds of flaked oats. That's gonna give it that kind of thicker, creamier mouthfeel. 1.5 pounds of white wheat will help contribute to that hazy appearance. And then I'm gonna add 4 ounces of acidulated malt. And this is optional because you can also add lactic acid. What this does is help bring your pH level down to where it needs to be. For a hazy IPA, I shoot for about 5.4 pH in my mash. And water profiles for a hazy IPA are super critical. That's gonna help contribute to that thicker, pillowy mouthfeel that you want, that creaminess that you get in a hazy IPA. And to do that, I'm gonna have the target water profile that I use in the video description below, but essentially you're gonna be shooting for about 2 to 3 times the amount of chloride as you will sulfates in your water profile. And like all hazy IPAs, this one's gonna have a bunch of hops, 6 ounces of Krush hops. So we will be adding a 1/2 ounce at about 15 minutes left in the boil. And then we're gonna be adding 3 ounces in a Whirlpool edition that we're gonna be doing at about 170 degrees for about 15 minutes. And then we're gonna add another 2.5 ounces at high Krausen during fermentation. This video is also sponsored by Clawhammer Supply, which is an awesome all-in-one electric system, and I'll have a link in the video description to this where you can go check out their products themselves, and we're gonna be using this today to go through the entire brew day process. So we're gonna start up by heating up about 8 gallons of water in our 10-gallon system here to about 154 degrees and start mashing in. All right, well that's heating up. We're gonna go ahead and crush our grains. Also, see what I did there? You do not need to mill your oats, so we're gonna go ahead and set those off to the side. We'll add those in with the rest of our grains after we crush them. And with the claw hammer system, you can actually crush this super fine. So I've dialed this down just a little bit to make that crush a little finer, because you don't really have to worry about a stuck sparge as much when you're doing a brew in a bag system like we do with the claw hammer. A couple tips when working with the claw hammer system that I've found out, it really does help to do a temperature calibration and a auto tune, which claw hammer has videos on their website. These two will help you dial in your mash temperatures and make sure your temperature probe is reading correctly when it's inside of the insulated thermal well. Then once this gets up to our desired mash temperature of 154 degrees, we're gonna go ahead and shut this thing off. And the reason I like to do that is because as we're adding our grains into our hot water here, that heating element at the bottom still has some heat left on it, even though it's off. And so it'll help kind of offset the difference between the colder grains going in and then that heating element still being warm. Then once we're all good and mixed in, we'll go ahead and turn on and recirculate our mash using the recirculating pump that comes with this claw hammer system. All right, so as our temperature is now got up to the 154, we're gonna go ahead and shut off the heat. We're gonna start mashing in. We're also gonna be adding about 4 grams of ascorbic acid after we mix in, and that will help preserve the beer longer term. And this helps also prevent some oxidation that can happen and is super critical for hazy IPAs. So I highly suggest adding that to all of your types of lighter style beers, but specifically hazy IPAs in general. All right, now that we got everything good and mixed in, we can go ahead and turn this thing back on to the heat, and then we're gonna recirculate using that pump. So make sure that your valve on your pump is turned on. You're also gonna wanna take your hose and get it started in here and then hook it up to the lid, which has a spray valve on the top. So we're gonna go ahead and open up our valve here in front. We're gonna let that circulate down, and then we're gonna turn on the pump here, let that start going, then turn that off, and then we're gonna hook it onto the lid. This helps it get started and prevents air bubbles in there, and then turn it back on. This is one of the best features that I think the claw hammer system has, is this recirculation on the lid. And so as you can see, this is spraying right here and recirculating that water all the way through our grain bed. And so this right here, this pump will just keep running and keep the consistent temperatures from all happening towards the element, towards the bottom, but also just pulls that sugars and stuff off of the grains as well. So it keeps the temperature consistent, and it rinses off those grains continuously as we're mashing. So we're gonna let this then mash for an hour. We'll come back and stir this occasionally, but for the most part, it's just gonna sit there and recirculate, build up that grain bed, and pull off all those delicious sugars that will create our awesome beer. So I first learned about Krush Hops from actually you guys. One of my subscribers during my live feed actually talked about Krush Hops. We actually looked them up, and I was able to buy some a couple of weeks ago. And then I went to go visit some family up in Minnesota and stopped at Black Stack Brewing. And they actually had an IPA with all Krush Hops on tap. So I instantly said, I need to try that. And I grabbed one and was like, wow. With a pretty standard kind of smash beer-esque pale ale that they had there, I was blown away with the hop characteristics that were in it. So that's what I love most about the channel, is that you guys help contribute to the content. I wouldn't have done this if it wouldn't have been for that subscriber pointing out Krush Hops a few weeks ago. All right, we're about 50 minutes or so into our mash, so we've got about 10 minutes left. And what I like to do is start raising the temperature to about 170 degrees. And the reason we do this is to kind of stop the conversion process, but it also raises those temperatures up to help kind of gain some efficiency. A brew in a bag system like the claw hammer system, or any brew in a bag system, is going to have a little bit less efficiency than, say, a regular sparge system where you're continually rinsing the grains with other water to get all those sugars off. To do that on the claw hammer, we're gonna go ahead and click our up button. So we get this little arrow, we're gonna push over till we get to the second dot over here, and then we're gonna raise that up to 170, and then we're gonna push set, and that's gonna keep our set value at 170. We're gonna be using a pulley system that Clawhammer sells separately than this system, and then hoist up that basket. It's a lot easier than lifting it up in place, but they also have these nice little clips that you can clip into the side of the basket that will hold it once you have it hoisted up. But the pulley system makes it so much easier on your back. It's also really important to let that drain for quite a bit of time. You want all of those sugars to get into your boil, and a lot of those will kind of drain out over time. So it's important to let that basket sit over there, or alternatively, you can take the basket, put it over another bucket, and then drain that bucket back into your boil later on if you want to get it out of the way. But one thing I like to do is start heating this up to a boil while this is draining. But I don't use the temperature controller in the same way to do this. One way that might be helpful for you if you find that it boils a little bit too rapidly during your boil process with the claw hammer is to use a percent value. There's a way to switch this to a manual mode, so we're gonna go ahead and hold the AM button, and we're gonna go ahead and change this to 60%. I've already got that set value set from the last time that I brewed, but normally this would be at 100. We're gonna go ahead and just click set, and now it's up to 60%. Now you can turn this to 100% to get it to a boil faster, and then turn it down to 60%. So I'm gonna do that to help it get up to that 212, and then once that happens, I'm gonna lower that down to 60. So really somewhere between kind of that 60, 65% really has worked for me, but depends on your elevation and other factors. You may wanna adjust that a little bit yourself. Quick tip. Take the basket out before it gets closer to boiling and add some firm cap S, because I just had a little bit of a boil over because I did not see that it was starting to foam up. Little firm cap S will help prevent boil overs in the future. I should have done that well before it got to this point. So we're gonna get this put down to 60% now that we've got that cleaned up, and get the boil started. This will turn back on the element, but it's only gonna give it 60% power to keep it at a kind of a rapid boil. All right, now that we got this thing to a consistent, rapid boil, we're gonna set our clock for 60 minutes, and then we are going to start counting down to when we're adding our hops. Make sure you're taking notes, make sure you're recording, especially if you're new on a new system, what you did, how much water you added, and what you got for pre-boil gravity to make sure that you're hitting your marks. You can always adjust after a couple of brews under your belt. The first couple of times I brewed on the claw hammer wasn't ideal because I had never brewed on it before, but asking questions from Clawhammer, they're an awesome group. You could reach out, find out what parameters they use as far as grain absorption, other things like that is a huge help. But if you have any questions, you can also leave them in the comment section below. Next, we're gonna be adding our hops. We're really close to the 15-minute mark here, and so we're gonna be adding that ½ ounce of Krush Hops. Clawhammer does have a hop spider that comes with their system that looks like this. Because we're gonna be adding a lot of hops, you could either add them directly to the boil kettle themselves, or I have a larger hop spider that looks like this one here. It's a 6-inch version versus this 4-inch. And so because we're adding so many more hops, I'm gonna end up using this one today. That smaller one may handle it, but I wanna make sure that there's a lot of surface area getting all those oils out during that whirlpool process. All right, we're at that 15-minute mark. This is 1 tablespoon yeast and nutrient. And then I'm also gonna add that ½ ounce of Krush Hops. Oh, it smells delicious. All right, so we're gonna get this all set up now for cooling down our wort in our last 15 minutes. We have our regular hose that goes to the inside of our pump. That's gonna stay the same. We've switched this though. This hose, instead of going up with our lid for recirculation, is now going to one of the chillers. I actually have the counterflow chiller hooked up here. It actually does come with a plate chiller, but Clawhammer also sells a counterflow chiller. When you use a lot of hops, this is a great option for that. So that's gonna go into the counterflow chiller. And then the output from this counterflow chiller is gonna go into this Whirlpool arm, which we're gonna slide inside of our kettle. It's gonna circulate within the kettle, and it's gonna help create any residue or cone in the bottom. That shouldn't be a problem today because we are using the hop spider, but we are gonna use this one. This is another attachment that Clawhammer sells for this system. To cool, we're gonna make sure that we have our hose that comes in with the cold water connected here, and then a hose connected here that's gonna go outside of my garage and outlet the warm water coming in here. And so we're gonna have all of this hooked up, ready to go. We're gonna make sure that our pump valve is turned on, but we're gonna leave that just like this until we're ready to cool down. Then the only thing we'll need to do is turn the valve here that comes from the out port from our kettle, turn that open to let everything go and turn on the pump. And then finally, of course, we would need to turn on the water. This is gonna let that wort recirculate within here, cool down for a good amount of time before we then transfer to our fermenter. So let's give it one last stir around right inside of that hop spider. Make sure those hop oils are really getting out in there. And then what I do is I'm gonna take the heat, I'm gonna shut it off. I'm gonna hold the auto manual button, and it's gonna go back to my other setting, okay? And so this says 170 degrees. I'm gonna probably turn up to 175-ish for our hop stand or our Whirlpool, right? So we're gonna go ahead and change this up to 175, push set. Now we're not gonna turn on the heat because we don't want it to heat yet, but if it starts getting cooler than that, then we can turn the heat back on to ensure that that stays at that 175 degrees. But for now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn on our water, which is gonna let it start circulating through that counterflow chiller. We're gonna open up our valve in the front of our kettle here, and then we're gonna turn on our pump. All right, and then once we start seeing the air get out of the tubing and stuff like that, and the pump running, recirculating, you should start seeing it start whirlpooling inside of here. And the temperature, of course, is now dropping because it's going through that counterflow chiller. Once we get to about 180 degrees, which would be any second now, I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the water only. So I'm not gonna have the water turned on. We're gonna go ahead and shut that off. That's not gonna cool it anymore. It'll still keep the recirculation going, but now I'm gonna add my Whirlpool hops at 175, which is right now, into my hop spider. All right, so now this thing is recirculating with the hops in there. We're gonna give it a good stir. And now it is getting to about 171 or so, says the temperature controller. If this starts dropping any further, I'm gonna put the heat button back on to heat it up to 175 degrees. Anywhere between 170 and 175 I'm okay with. We're gonna let this stand for about 10 or 15 minutes or so, so let those hop oils really get out of there. I am gonna pick up this hop spider a few times and let it kind of dump out, make sure that we're getting all those hop oils out of there. And then we're gonna keep checking the temp. Once that 10 minutes has happened, then we're gonna go ahead, turn that water back on, make sure this pump is still recirculating with no heat, and then let it cool down to our pitching temperature where we're gonna put it into our fermenter. Pitching temperature for this yeast also is between 70 and 85 degrees. So this is a great one if you don't have great fermentation temperature control. You can do this just about anywhere, but I am gonna try to keep this around 75 or so. I'm gonna show you how I prep my hops for the dry hop. I have a cleaned and sanitized paint strainer bag, a gallon size paint strainer bag. I'm gonna go ahead and pour in my 2.5 ounces of hops here. And I'm gonna also include 2 magnets for the sous vide magnets, okay, inside of here. I'm gonna put them both on opposite sides so they don't stick together right away. And then I'm gonna tie this shut. So I have my 2 magnets that are gonna be right here towards the top. I'm gonna roll those things so it's not hanging down like this. We're gonna go ahead and roll these in the bag. And then when I put this in the fermenter, I'm gonna go ahead and attach those just like this so it's nice and tight up inside the fermenter. All right, we have our hydrometer in there already, our tilt hydrometer. We're gonna go ahead and add these hops. So I have 2 of the sous vide magnets in this bag. I'm gonna go ahead and put the other 2 on the outside of the fermenter. So I have another 2 right here. And again, I'll have all this stuff in my Amazon store, which is linked in the video description. So you go ahead and put this on the inside of the fermenter. putting one of those sous vide magnets attached to each of the ones inside of the bag here as well. So that will hold that up towards the top of the fermenter up here, allow all that Krausen activity, and then once we're ready, we just pull those magnets off. We'll be back after we dry hop this to taste it and see how it came out.
"24 hours later."
Wow, I'm in love with this beer. It is absolutely amazing. Looking, tasting, and smelling. And we'll go through all three of those, but I'm a little lost for words. I absolutely love how this beer turned out. It has got an excellent color, perfect amount of haze. I actually made it a little bit lighter on purpose this go around, but it's still got kind of that orangish hue to it. But I really wanted to kind of mimic the pineapple mango flavors that I was expecting from this beer. And so I think the color wise, it is really spot on. It did a really nice job, looks great in this glass, and the head sticks around for a while and smells even better. You get all of those pineapple and mango and berry flavors on the nose. It is amazing. And I think a lot has to do with those Krush Hops, but also the yeast choice, because that yeast, again, remember, was that pineapple mango forward flavors in that tropical IPA from Omega. You can really get all of those aromas. All of the pineapple really comes forward, the mangoes and the berries. I can probably pick out all three in the aroma itself. And this again is just one hop. Definitely my crush. Without further ado, let's get our lips on this thing. Wow. At first, when I made this beer, it was a little bit harsh. I had to leave it a couple of days to let that kind of hop bitterness kind of die down. And I will tell you what, after about 5 days in the keg or so, it has really rounded out. It is a smooth, easy drinking, very low bitterness beer, and you get all of those fruit flavors in the back end. So again, we're talking that pineapple, mango, and berry flavors. Yeah, I'm thinking that pineapple actually stands out more than anything, which is amazing and very unique for a beer, because I've had a lot of other mango and citrus flavored hazies, but that pineapple really pops in this one, which gives it a really good flavor. One of the things that did happen during this one is it got a little drier than I wanted it to. In the final fermentation, ended up somewhere around, I think, 1.006, and normally that would be around like 1.010 or even higher. But you know, I can't really tell that it's really dry. You still get that mouth feel from the oats that are in there, also from the extra chloride that we put in the water additions that really helps kind of soften and give it that pillowy mouthfeel. And that's what you're really tasting when you try a hazy IPA. You want to be that softer, pillowy mouthfeel. But I will say, for a single hop IPA, this is probably as good as it gets. I mean, you get all these different fruit flavors with this single hop that you would have had to add multiple hops in before to get and achieve this type of flavor. So I think those Krush Hops are absolutely fantastic, and I would brew with this again and again and again. It's a great beer, one that you definitely need to try out. So if you want a little crush of your own, well, you're in luck, because the entire recipe again is in the video description below, and you can brew it yourself. But if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section. Also, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. Now, if you don't mind, me and my crush here would like some privacy. Cheers. Hey, thanks for watching my video. You're awesome. You want to be even more awesome? Hit that join button and become a member. You'll get exclusive members-only recipes and other perks like Brew Day sheets, and watch my videos early as they drop before anyone else. So hit that join button below, become a member, and be awesome.